I told you already, this is not a place for wanderers. Thank you, that's fine actually. I was just hoping for a bowl of cold water to wake myself up. The young woman looked down on the old man, assuming he was just a beggar, but the truth would soon leave everyone stunned. One drizzly morning in the heart of Bangkok's bustling financial district, towering blue glass buildings stood cold and unfeeling, like steel giants surrounded by glowing neon signs. In front of the revolving door, an elderly man with white hair stood quietly. He wore a worn-out patterned shirt with a frayed collar and old slacks, yet they were neatly pressed. Before we continue, tell me, where are you watching this from? Drop a comment below. In his hands, he tightly clutched an old yellow file folder. He stood still for a moment, as if gathering all his courage. Taking a deep breath, he stepped inside. The polished marble floor reflected his worn leather shoes, their peeling surface sharply contrasting with the shiny branded shoes walking past him. Behind the counter, a young receptionist with curled hair and bright red lipstick looked up. Her eyes scanned him from head to toe before stopping briefly on his old, shabby file. That brief glance was enough for anyone observant to notice the irritation, suspicion, and disdain in her eyes. She frowned, straightened her blazer, and spoke coldly in a sharp voice loud enough for others to hear. "Sir, we don't allow beggars in here. Please leave." Behind her, two male employees waiting for the elevator chuckled. One whispered, loud enough for everyone nearby to hear, "He's probably here to apply as a security guard or a janitor. Doesn't look like he belongs here at all." The other clicked his tongue. "Just kick him out already. He's ruining the company's image." No one thought to ask who the old man really was. No one cared to look deeper into his eyes that, despite the wrinkles and exhaustion, still held a quiet brightness. No one noticed the way he held that file so tightly, as if it contained something important. They saw only a faded shirt, cheap trousers, unstyled silver hair, and in their minds they instantly labeled him an outsider, a problem, someone best avoided. Uncle Dachai, that was his name, tilted his head slightly, as if the receptionist's words didn't surprise him at all. He had expected this. He had prepared himself ever since he stepped off the old bus at Don Mueang stop, but hearing the word beggar come out so easily still caused a sharp sting in his heart. The old man didn't argue. He didn't turn away in a hurry. Instead, he simply smiled, a gentle smile that felt strangely out of place in the cold hall of glass and marble. "I didn't come here to ask for anything, dear," he said slowly. "I just want to meet the person in charge. I have something to discuss." His voice didn't tremble. There was no hint of pleading, only a calm, steady tone. It was as if he still stood in his own world, not in a place where everyone seemed to think they were above him. The young receptionist was slightly taken aback by his composure, but her pride, as an employee of a major corporation, wouldn't allow her to back down in front of her colleagues. She crossed her arms, leaned forward slightly, lowered her voice, but kept her strict tone. "Do you have an appointment, sir? We don't allow outsiders without one. If you need anything, please contact the call center. Walking in like this is against the rules." Uncle Mi-chai shook his head. "I can't call the call center. This matter needs to be discussed in person. I'd like to meet an executive or someone from HR. Just a few minutes would be enough." People nearby began to turn and look. In a place where everyone was always in a rush, an ordinary-looking old man standing in the middle of the lobby insisting on meeting an executive clearly meant trouble. A sales employee walking past with a laptop glanced at him, then at the receptionist, raising an eyebrow. "Should we call security? What if he starts causing a scene?" Encouraged, the receptionist straightened up and spoke louder. Sir, I'm serious. Without an appointment, you cannot meet anyone. This is a major corporation, not a place people can just walk into. She emphasized the words major corporation as if to remind him of his place in an invisible hierarchy that everyone here followed. In this system, those wearing polished shoes, luxury watches, and carrying leather bags were welcomed with smiles. But someone like Uncle Mi Chai, holding an old file, wearing worn-out shoes, was nothing more than dust. He let out a soft sigh. Gently, he lifted his hand and brushed the surface of the file, feeling the softened edges of the papers inside, worn down by time. That file contained everything he and his wife had built together. The very first contracts, photographs from the opening day of their business, fragments of a past that no one in this grand lobby knew anything about. He had hesitated for a long time before coming here. He didn't come here to reclaim anything for himself, but to fulfill a promise he had made to the woman who once stood beside him. He had shared both hardship and happiness with her for nearly half his life, but he still didn't rush to speak. He wanted to wait a little longer, to observe more closely, to truly see how the people in this place treated someone they believed had no value at all. If you're watching this and feel slightly uncomfortable with the way they're speaking to the old man, try asking yourself a small question. Have you ever judged someone just by the clothes they wear or the car they drive, and automatically placed them in a lower category in your mind? You might feel a sudden jolt, because sometimes these small stones in our thoughts are what come together to build invisible walls, pushing others away. Just like everyone in this grand building was unknowingly pushing Uncle Mi Chai away. What they didn't realize was that in just a few days, the man they called a beggar would bring the entire building to a standstill. Not because he caused trouble, but because the truth about who he really was would make them unable to even look back at themselves. Uncle Mi Chai stood in the middle of the lobby, slightly hunched, yet his eyes remained calm in a way that was almost unsettling. That calmness made a few people hesitate, but only briefly. Very quickly, their habit of labeling the poor as problems took over again. Whispers began to spread. Some people even raised their phones a little, as if they were about to watch some kind of after-work entertainment. Strangely, none of this made Uncle Mi Chai angry. He simply observed each face, carefully. The well-done makeup, the neatly tied neckties, the half-smiles mixed with a hint of mockery, as if he were quietly recording everything in an invisible notebook within his heart. "Sir," the receptionist spoke again, now clearly nervous about being blamed by her superiors if she allowed a stranger to linger. She tried to keep her voice firm. "If you don't leave, I'll have to call security. No one here is going to meet you." The words came out so easily, as if she were used to judging people without ever needing to know the stories they carried behind them. Nearby, a man in a black suit with a badge identifying him as a technical manager stood watching. From a distance, a man glanced at Uncle Mi Chai and smirked. "Sir, you've come to the wrong place. This building is for million-dollar clients. Do you understand that?" Uncle Mi Chai remained silent, but one thing was very clear. He did not turn and walk away. There was no sign of panic or confusion, not even the slightest. He stood firm, like a great tree that had weathered countless storms. There might have been a trace of sadness in his eyes, but there was no sense of inferiority in him at all. And it was that calmness that began to unsettle the receptionist. It felt as if she was trying to push someone away, yet that person neither resisted nor showed fear. Somehow it made her authority feel strangely fragile. A few young employees walked past, glancing at him before exchanging faint smiles. People are so strange these days. Just the other day, someone was pretending to be poor to ask for money at Pak San. Yeah, this man looks kind, but better to be safe. Just get him out of here." Those seemingly harmless words, when put together, became bricks, building a thick wall of prejudice that Uncle Michai had to face. Yet he responded only with a gentle gaze, like the soft light of an autumn evening, the gaze of someone who understood that sometimes a single misunderstanding is enough to destroy another person's dignity. Uncle Michai slowly looked around the lobby. Warm yellow lights reflected on busy faces. Some rushed to meetings, some checked their emails, some adjusted their ties. It was a place that looked refined, civilized, almost perfect. Yet the moment a simply dressed old man stepped inside, everything changed. Faces tightened, expressions hardened, as if a stain had suddenly appeared on a spotless glass surface. He thought to himself, if Hatai were still here, she would be deeply saddened. Her name surfaced in his mind, making his heart feel heavy. Hatai. He remembered her voice, gentle yet firm. P. Michai, you can tell who people truly are just by how they treat those who have nothing to offer them. He had made her a promise, a difficult one, to return to the very place they had once built together. He had once built this place from the very beginning, but now he returned as someone with no identity, no title, none of the luxury that once surrounded him. All just to see whether the heart of this place was still beating, or had already turned to stone. And now, amidst the whispers, the judging eyes, and the invisible coldness spreading across the polished marble floor, he realized he was standing exactly where that promise began to matter. In a quiet corner of the lobby stood Lynn, a young assistant whom most people barely noticed. Unlike the others, there was no contempt or curiosity in her eyes, only a quiet sense of wonder. There was something about the old man that made it impossible for her to look away, a rare calmness, a quiet dignity that resisted quick judgment, unlike the people around her. If only they had noticed the small photograph tucked inside Uncle Michai's shirt pocket, perhaps everything would have gone silent in an instant. But they didn't know. No one knew. And because they didn't know, they felt entitled to laugh, to mock, to dismiss a man within seconds of seeing him. What they didn't realize was that in just a few days, the very people standing proudly in this lobby would find themselves standing before him, not as those above him, but as those who had lost a piece of their own humanity, waiting for a chance to be forgiven. The next morning, Bangkok woke up to a brighter sky, but inside the lobby of Mahathanu Corporation, the atmosphere felt heavier than before. Just past 8 a.m., employees began streaming in, busy preparing for meetings. Then, the moment Uncle Michai stepped through the revolving door, everything froze. It was as if someone had pressed pause. The receptionist, May, who had just lifted her latte to take a sip, nearly dropped it. Her face turned pale. Her colleague whispered nervously, "Oh my God, that old man is back." Uncle Michai wore the same clothes as yesterday, a faded blue patterned shirt, slightly wrinkled dark slacks, and worn black shoes with peeling edges. On his shoulder hung the same old document bag. But today, his steps were firmer, as if he had spent the entire night thinking carefully about what he was about to do. He didn't look around. He didn't try to draw attention. He simply walked straight toward the reception counter, slowly, but with unwavering determination. May suddenly felt her hands grow damp with sweat. Her heart began to pound.